There's like two $3 million campaigns, and the more traditional board games I'm interested in are still struggling to cross 300k this week. So it's a good week all around. Just depends on who you are. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back, the weekly crowdfunding segment where we go over all the active campaigns, or most of the active campaigns, a bunch of updates, some board game adjacent, some cancelled and not funding, all of the usual stuff. But first, this week we have a Sponsor of the Week, and the Sponsor of the Week specifically is the Origins Game Table. The Origins Game Table, over on Kickstarter, they are currently running a new campaign for their board game coffee table. They've previously done the Origins Game Table, they also had a more of a smaller card table at one point, and now they're doing their second crowdfunding campaign where they're doing their coffee table. You can get both the new coffee table as well as the original Origins board game table. Both of them are available in this campaign. The coffee table has a few different options in terms of they have, smaller spacing in terms of if you want just to flip the top over and call it a day. They also have an expanded surface in case you want that. So if you're looking for more board game table options, the Origins game table has you covered. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the campaigns of the week. Starting off with our usual, because we do crowdfunding and all of that, starting off with our usual the Cult of the Now. That's what we call it. I always forget because I'm always want to say Cult of the Old and Cult of the New, but it's the Cult of the Now. Not my idea, a viewer's idea, but a good idea. Cult of the Now is where we take a look at a currently available game and talk about how that's a great game and you can get that game and you don't have to wait a year and a half and you don't have to pay Kickstarter prices and you can just go ahead and get a solid game now. And today's game, over from Card House Games, is Luna Capital, coming in at $32 for the game. Luna Capital is a fantastic game that falls into the same genre of games like, anything from Flat Out Games in terms of Cascadia, Calicos, that kind of puzzly experience as you seek to optimize your score around a bunch of criteria as you gather various things, try to set up your boards, place tiles down. The scoring aid, not the best, the art, not my favorite, but the game behind those things are absolutely fantastic. Love this game from Devere Games, Luna Capital, over on Card House. $32, I mean, it's a good game. It's a good game. But from there, let's go ahead and start off with Board Game Adjacent, and the first of our $3 million campaigns that are over the top. So we have specifically the Academic 133 Plus XL. I have no idea what this stands for. I'm not heavily going to go into this, but this is from the Professor over on YouTube. If you've seen his channel, he basically talks about Magic the Gathering stuff and other stuff, peripherals as well. I've seen Pokemon videos from him, other things tangentially related, but he talks about MTG. And he finally, after I don't know how many years in YouTube and all that, has put out his own game box associated with GameGenix specifically. GameGenix, which has done stuff for the board game space at the same time, but they custom made his own box to his standards, things he wants. He talks about how he's been hesitant to put his name on anything. He doesn't just want to slap his logo on it. He wants it to be something he really likes. He has a full video diving into this. This is going to be a Magic the Gathering deck box. In theory, you can use it for anything that you want to store cards in, although it specifically is suited or geared towards Magic. $3 million raised, 32,000 backers, 4 days to go. From the Professor, his first campaign, the box of his dreams, which I certainly hope so. He designed it, although I take it back because I guarantee you if I design a board game at any point, if that happens, maybe we'll see, it won't be my favorite board game. I guarantee you that right now. Just statistically speaking, there are so many amazing, incredible games. I will likely be tolerable of any game I design. Honestly, I'll probably show up in a Games Leaving the Collection video, let's be honest. Anyways, now I kind of want to design a board game just so I can actually get rid of it and be like, it's not that great. Anyways, this is the Academic from the Professor, if you want to check that out. $45 for this, whole bunch of add-ons and options in case you want that, and that's our first board game adjacent. Moving on from there, we have the Origins Season 2 Gaming Coffee Table. We just covered this in our Sponsor of the Week, but the Origins Table, 212 backers, $309,000 raised, 18 days to go. The Origins game table is available both as a coffee table as well as a bundle too. If you want the game table, if you want the coffee table, or if you want the bundle. Coffee table starting at $1,200, 25% off the actual price if you get it on Kickstarter. $2,000 for the Origins table, and then $3,200 for the combination of both together. Now keep in mind that is, starting price. If you want accessories, toppers, all these other options, the price will go up. So make sure you go through those rungs to make sure that the price, the fit, all the things you want are for you. I generally recommend people to be very cautious about the accessories they buy, not because of anything other than the fact that I find people want all the accessories and don't really use all the accessories. You'll use some, but just be very mindful. If you wonder if you will actually use it, there's a decent chance that you won't. Decent chance, and you're also paying a high price for all those accessories. But this is the Origins game table. Tons of video out there, tons of video content out there, including, by the way, there's a quote over here on this page from what's her name? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Paula Deming. She has a quote somewhere on this table, on this page, which is on point. Where is it? She basically talks, she put out a fantastic video basically about the Origins coffee table, which you should definitely check out. It is hilarious, it is humorous, and I can't find the quote, but the quote is, she apparently found out that coffee tables are not actually made of coffee. And you might laugh, but I kid you not, I still remember to this day the first time I had coffee cake and was disappointed. Like, genuinely disappointed. I was sitting there, I was having coffee cake. I love coffee. If you've watched this channel, you know that. It's like right after board games and, you know, well, right after board games, right before video games probably. It's probably board games, coffee, video games. But I love coffee. I had coffee cake, and I was so disappointed when I realized it was not coffee cake. It was goes well with coffee cake. That's the point. Apparently, there's this thing out there that everyone knows, but I did not know, that coffee cake doesn't actually have coffee. It's just meant to go with coffee. Can you tell me another food out there that is named based on the thing that it goes well with? You know, ketchup chips, do they go well with ketchup? You know, well, what other food product out there? Now, to be fair, tea biscuits is the only other one I could think of. I can't think tea biscuits, which means we just have this weird, bizarre thing where, like, tea and coffee, you can name a food that thing because it goes well with that thing. Orange cake doesn't go well with oranges. It has oranges in it, like orange flavoring in it. Close enough. I mean, any other lemon cake doesn't go well with lemons. It has lemon flavoring in it. Chocolate cake doesn't go well with chocolate. Why in the world would you disappoint me by calling something coffee cake when you really want to call it goes well with coffee? Fun fact, by the way, in my house for the past like 10 years, we don't call things coffee cake, we call it goes well with coffee cake. I don't know why I went on this rant, it's just because, honestly, Paula Deming seemed pretty disappointed that coffee tables aren't made of coffee, and humorous as that might be, I genuinely understand and appreciate that sentiment. I don't know why we do these things. I don't know why I go to these tangents, these rabbit holes. But either way, that's the Origins coffee table, which is not made of coffee and goes well with coffee, apparently. But that's the Origins coffee table. You can check that out as well as anything else in terms of what they have. They are worth noting, by the way. Check out Game Brigade's video as well. He got the coffee table. He got the game table. Has a bunch of comments and critiques. I know that Origins is looking into that, so check that out both for the concerns as well as what they're doing about those in case you're getting that table. But that is what we have over here. Anyways, moving on to our first in the not funding category. We have Bonnie and Clyde, Love and Death, play as the famous Desperado duo in the last run. 135 backers, $5,000. This is a solo game as you go through, well, their adventures, trying to survive, trying to keep shelter, engage and fight with the cops, do all those things. It's a little bit of a crime spree, practically speaking, but, you know, depends if that bothers you or not. That is going to be from Yeast Games, a solo game. Looks on track that there's a decent chance it will fund. Currently halfway through the funding goal, $5,000 out of $10,000 raised, with 14 days to go. Could go either way. We'll see where this one ends up. Moving on from there, we have Barnyard, a bifold game. This is also going to be, oh, interesting, that's funny. They call it a bifold game instead of a wallet game. I see that. But this is 2,600 backers, $4,000 raised, $2,600 out of $4,000. We have 120 backers, and this is coming to you from BGB Publishing. This is a wallet game or a bifold game. This is not Button Shy Games. They just have a wallet with 18 cards and a little like 5-card expansion pack. This is a drafting game in which you're going to be taking the top cards from the row. You're trying to basically be mindful of the abilities as you manipulate the card row in order to gather the various cards, and then to try to pair up your various sheeps or various animals, I should say, into your yard, trying to be mindful of the different scoring goals. It's, a two-player drafting game. It's not specifically with any solo mode or anything like that. The expansion is going to give you various characters. You want to be mindful of their goals and things like that. This is going to be coming for $10 for the game, and that's going to be Barnyard, what was it called again? Barnyard, just Barnyard. For some reason, I thought there was another name, just Barnyard. Anyways, from there we move to updates. Starting off with Teburu. Teburu presents the Bad Karmas. This has a few days left. It's going to be, looks like it will cross 300,000, which was my initial number that I pegged it at just in my head, because it's a weird balance, because it's an expensive game, there's a lot of cost to it, but it's also a game that's going to pull in some backers while also having other backers hesitant. I completely get that. This is new technology, that's what happens. But the only reason it's in the update category is because there are 2 videos in case you want to see more content about it. We have Board Game Coffee. Speaking of coffee, now he leans into the coffee thing. He even calls his short videos espressos. So that's like, I can appreciate that. But Board Game Coffee had a recent video covering the newest Gemini, as well as Quacklope. Over on Quacklope, you can see myself, Shira, and Jesse tackling Gemini. A great boss fight. Again, with concerns and critiques, but they already addressed those aspects. One of the nice things about the Teburu software is the nature of the fact that you could basically say, oh, people had feedback about this boss. Great. Software update. Great. I don't know why I think that people are coding by texting. You don't code by texting unless you're really, really good at coding, I guess. Anyways, that is Teburu. From there, we have Encyclopedia. A few days to go. Really excited about this game. You've heard me talk about it. I love the game. Very excited. $243,000, 3,000 backers so far. They have a bunch of Kickstarter extras and exclusives, a bunch of humorous stuff as well. They had some April Fool's jokes that they straight up turned into, you know, hey, why not throw that into the game because we like that. The most recent update or something like that had a cow jumping, like, what do they have? They have this over here, this cow that, you know, shifts around between players. Yeah, interesting stuff. You don't have to play with that stuff. I'm not sure if I will, practically speaking. I really like the game. The humorous stuff is interesting. I don't know if I will use it or not. I may throw it into a game. We'll see. I don't really know. But either way, that is Encyclopedia from Holy Grail Games. We have the Nightmare Cathedral. The last of our updates, I believe. No, that's not last. Second last of our updates. €129,000 for this GameFound exclusive game. So if you want the game, you should get it over, well, now, ideally, because it won't be available heavily past retailers who back the campaign. So this is the time to go ahead and jump in on this one. Solid game. 1,500 backers. It's a really, really good game. The art is its own, you know, own thing. I don't care about the art at all. It's not why I'm interested in the game. I'm interested in the game because it is a really good two-player area control game. Plays well. Oh, there we go. It's absolutely excellent. Yes, it absolutely was excellent. I was very, very impressed by this one. Went from being a game I was not that intrigued by to a game that just plays smoothly, plays quickly. A few complaints about small sub aspects, but really was impressed by this one. The biggest thing I could say is my wife sat down to play this one almost as a favor. She was really not interested in the art. She's like, listen, okay, you got this whole board game YouTube thing you do. I mean, she likes board games, but like she was like doing this to support the channel, and she said that she would totally play this again because she really had a good time playing this one. But either way, let's go ahead and dive from there into the last of our updates, which is Casting Shadows. Casting Shadows is the second of our two $3 million campaigns, and yes, by the way, technically speaking, the Academic is not actually crossing 3 million when I talk about it, but I guarantee you it's at 3 million by the time you watch this. Anyways, moving back to Casting Shadows, $3 million raised, 27,000 backers, 61 hours to go, and I still hope that I can maintain just my bare minimum $50 pledge for this game. My kids will be interested in this one. I've talked about this before. This is coming to you from the same people who did Unstable Unicorns, Unstable Unicorns, and Here to Slay. That's what they've, and T-Turtle, basically. T-Turtle. I wear their shirts all the time, but they have a whole bunch of extras that you can get. A ton of extras, an obnoxious amount of extras. If you scroll down to the amount of stuff you can get for this game, from stickers to, let's try to scroll down. Like, I mean, look at this. Look at this stuff. This stuff is like, I mean, they're so obnoxious. They charge ridiculously, not ridiculously, I shouldn't say ridiculously. They charge high prices for the stuff that my kids are going to love and really, really want. Oh my gosh, they added updates to these. They updated the figures here. My kids are going to like be over the moon for this stuff. This is going to be like a whole, I'm probably going to upgrade. I should not, but this will make like a whole bunch of fun presents. What I'll do is I'll space out these presents over the course of who knows how long. And then there's the $30 Kickstarter Unicorn add-on bundle. Have to get that, obviously, because why wouldn't you? And then there's the reversible plushies, because you can get all these reversible plushies. And if you haven't seen the reversible plushies, honestly, you shouldn't be looking at this over here. Go to T-Turtle and check out the reversible plushies, and you'll get a feel for what these look like. The good news is they're only like $18 each, so that's like another $150 you could spend on this game. And then we have, you know, enamel sets over here, enamel pin sets. That's obviously stuff you want. And then there's the stickers and the companion keychains and the sticker sets. Oh. This is tough stuff, man. Nothing to do with the game at this point. At this point, the game I'm interested in, but it's really, one of the things I've been doing my whole life is I've been buying my kids, basically stuffed animals and things like that. Every time I travel, I'll come back with like stuffed animals for them. They're already getting older, but they like getting those things. It's a nice little like memento they add to their collections and all that. This game is really pushing the bounds of how much I love my children, because it's not for me. I guarantee you that. The game, I mean, maybe I'll enjoy it, maybe not. But if I get this stuff and whatever pledge level I get, it is purely the love of a father for his children, and nothing to do with my lack of self-control. Not in the slightest. But that's Casting Shadows. Last chance to make your decisions, and wow, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Moving on to the new campaign, starting off with Kaikoro. Okay, now we're on to the new campaigns, all of those stuff. Maybe you jumped in from the timestamps, in which case, welcome. You saved yourself a whole lot of unnecessary stuff to watch. But Kaikoro is going to be the third time we're covering a print-and-play roll and write. Honestly, totally happy to... Fourth time. But I'm totally happy to be covering these. I like the concept of cheap, accessible stuff that you can just get your hands on in something that looks interesting and just print it out and see if it's for you, and you spent $5. You don't get the premium who knows what, but you can get a good game that you can print out and print out again and print out again. And in this case, you are defending your your city from monsters. That's basically what's happening here. 30-minute game, 1 to 100 players, roll the dice, assign them to the various things, and try to stop the monsters from defeating your cities, and whatever you don't stop, they'll slowly be merging in, making their way inwards. Looks fun, looks intriguing. Honestly, all of these games look fun and intriguing, so there's not really the most clever, interesting thing I can say, but I will say this is $5 for the print and play game, includes the files, colored, low ink, all that stuff, so you can get both. That actually is helpful, by the way. That means you can print it out for, black and white in case you don't have a color printer or don't want to spend the money on the colored sheet, or you can print it out in color if you want to get that. Both options are available to you, which is nice that they give you that flexibility. But that is basically what's going on in terms of Kaikoro. $5 print and play, not going to hold its value. Print and plays don't, because you can't really sell them. Moving on from there to Maul Peak, an asymmetric 2-player game with epic meeples. This is $81,000 raised, 1,600 backers, 16 days to go. This is coming to you from Pencil First Games. This is the spiritual successor to Skull Hollow, the sequel to Skull Hollow. Now, to be very clear, it is a standalone game. You do not need Skull Hollow at all. But yes, if you do have Skull Hollow, you can combine them. You can either fight the monsters in this one against the heroes in that one, the heroes in this one versus the monsters in that one, or you can crossplay and have some sort of epic 4-player matchup that I don't know the details of. In terms of what the game is, you can check out Skull Hollow more if you go ahead and check that on Board Game Geek or reviews or whatever, but this is basically a game of a bunch of small, cute little heroes fighting off against these, well, honestly, cute monsters at the same time, and then you're gonna have asymmetric gameplay between the monsters and the heroes as you try to manage the heroes against the monsters as you go head to head in this 2-player experience. In theory, I guess you could probably divide up the heroes so you can play with more players, but it's really designed as a 2-player experience. Quick, fun, fast-paced game. For some reason, I want to say fun, fast-paced game. But fun, fast-paced game. You can check out tons of content about Skull Hollow, and this is, the successor to that. More stuff for the game, or just a good entry point to the experience. As far as should you back it, should you not, Maul Peak's coming in at $45 for the game. This is one of those that falls into the category of, it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to get it as cheap as possible, comparing this to generally available retail prices, especially once you consider the small extras you get, this is not a bad price point to get the game at. If you're comparing it to the secondhand market and will it hold its value, will it not? Generally, the answer is not a strong yes, meaning you'll probably lose like $10, something like that, on the secondhand market in terms of if you, get rid of this game and see if it's not for you or all that. But yeah, it depends on whether you're comparing it to retail pricing or secondhand market pricing. Unlikely to hold its value. Not a bad place to get the game in case you're getting it anyway. And that is Maul Peak. Moving on to Silicon Valley, which I'm honestly surprised is not doing better. I mean, 271 backers, $15,000 raised. Then just the name Scott Alms, I would have honestly assumed would bring in more interest. This is coming to you from Grail Games, who've done a bunch of games, both from reprints as well as new games. And the holding its value part is going to be an interesting conversation. We'll see why in a second. It could be the artwork, honestly. I'm not sure. I can just tell you, I am interested in anything Scott Alms designs, and I'm interested in this game based on the mechanics that I've seen, but I'll also say that I'm not interested in the artwork of the game, despite the fact that the artist of this game has a bunch of games that I think the artwork is fantastic. It just happens to be this one is not pulling me in. It just feels a little drier. It's not something about it's not really pulling me in from a graphical design artwork standpoint, while the rest of the game looks fantastic. It kind of looks like Project L taken to the next level. The idea that you have these cars, that you're trying to slowly fill these cars by gathering polyomino pieces. You're going to be hiring employees. Employees will give you specific polyomino pieces, but you can also buy those pieces directly from the market in case you don't have employees, something you just need to outsource. You're going to be taking those polyominoes and putting them onto various cars to represent the technology that you're building, but your opponents can copy the technology at that point, so you have to be mindful of that as well and sunset certain technologies once they're no longer helping you, while building up a whole bunch of aspects of your engine at the same time. So it kind of really feels like Project L, but taken to a different level in terms of what it's doing. Same general overview with a different concept applied. Looks very intriguing, as your goal is to be the first startup to reach $1 billion or $1 million, not actually clear. And also, by the way, I mean, just watching this video, this will give you a good feel for how the game plays. But yeah, it's coming to you from Grail Games, and it's going to be running you, what is it? It's going to be running you $51, here we go, $30 for the startup, and $51 for the entrepreneur. That's coming with the plastic code blocks and the metal Bitcoin. So if you want these all upgraded, that'll run you an extra $21 for the game. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? It likely not on this one. Grail Games in general, with exceptions, have done, well, fine. They've done okay as far as the secondhand market. You see, they generally have the 2 pledge levels. They have the retail option, which is comparable to the Kickstarter, and then they have the extras you get. Main reason to get this Kickstarter would be if you want those extras. If you want the metal coins, the upgraded blocks, then go ahead and get on the Kickstarter. It likely won't hold its value that great on the secondhand market, but will do decently as far as, again, you'll lose the shipping price, something along those lines. The exception, the part that I said is interesting, is a lot of their games have held their value just fine if you look at the current secondhand market on some of the Knizia titles. And that's partially because they're no longer in print, they're no longer available, so that changes the conversation. There was Knizia worked with Grail Games for a bit, and then it seems to have separated from them, making some of those titles harder to get your hands on, and being Knizia titles also a little more sought after. So while some of the games have held their value, and honestly the same thing could happen here hypothetically, but in general their games have done okay in the secondhand market without doing great. So if you want the game, I would recommend getting this one specifically with the Entrepreneur Pack, because the retail option, honestly, they're cheaper at retail once they go to retail. Not significantly cheaper, but a bit cheaper. So the main reason to get this game would be main reason to get the game on Kickstarter would be that entrepreneur level. Moving on from there to Aldarra. Aldarra is a fast-paced 4X combat-focused strategy game with 152 huge minis, bucket of dice, and an expansive world. This is a relaunch. They had this on Kickstarter already, and they cancelled it. It was funded, but they canceled it pretty quickly based on feedback from people who wanted a lower price point and smaller miniatures, and they're like, hey, we know we funded, we know we got this over the finish line already, but we'll go ahead and adjust this to make it a game that hopefully is a better fit for more people. It seems like they've done that because, if I recall correctly, they had around 500 backers in the first day over on the first launch, and this time around they're already up to 1,500 backers with still 18 days to go. So I think it's a good decision on their part to cancel, to quickly adjust, and to give more people what they want. Admittedly, whenever you do that, you always upset a few people, and there are some people who wanted those larger miniatures, and they actually cover that in the FAQ. They hope to make STL files available for the larger miniatures, but right now they're focusing on this campaign, and they're focusing on the target audience for the majority of interest, and if you wanted those larger stuff, maybe they'll come in the future in some way, shape, or form. As far as the price point, they brought the price point back down in the game. They have $25 just for STLs, picking that, and that's going to be dependent as far as what you get, but they have a whole bunch of STL options, and then for the base game, they have $135 for the base game, and $235 for the all-in, as well as a whole bunch of digital rewards and options and optional buys you can get for the game. As far as what the game is, it's a 4X experience of airship combat with asymmetric factions, with variable setup. Honestly, the video, you should absolutely watch the video. The video in like 2.5 minutes gives you a great feel for what this game is. It's, again, 4X, variable setup, asymmetric factions, lots of abilities, lots of objectives as you combine fighting each other, as well as objectives, as well as growing things, developing your characters, upgrading stuff. Lots of reasons to dive into this one. Looks interesting. It looks, I mean, the miniatures look fine to me. Like, this is not as much my target audience as far as the miniature stuff, the type of stuff they're doing, but overall, the game looks fun, looks interesting. You can check out Mark Street for more of a in-depth, in-depth presentation of the game, as well as RTFM for a rules overview. RTFM, by the way, has some of the best rules out there. Very clear, very concise, did a great job with this as well. But that's basically what's going on with Aldarra. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? Probably yes on this one, for a few reasons. First of all, there is a whole Kickstarter exclusive section. Let's see if we can scroll down through the tons and tons of pages full of stuff to the Kickstarter exclusive box over here. This is going to show you all the extras you're getting as far as Kickstarter exclusive that will not be available in any way, shape, or form outside of this Kickstarter. And then even aside from that, they also have the fact that they talk about, you know, what's the retail availability, all of that. They said it depends. We don't have firm plans or knowing of this or that. And with a game in this price point and this size and with this many miniatures, generally retail availability on these games to begin with is a little lower and or completely stripped down. No guarantees, but $135 for the base game. That's coming off a $220 MSRP, which I believe, based on what's being given here, just in terms of the sheer number of miniatures and everything else. You're talking a Gloomhaven size box in today's day and age, which a $220 MSRP does make sense for this. So I would say that you're both getting a good price, you're both getting it earlier, and you're getting Kickstarter exclusive content. I think this one is likely to hold its value. The only real risk, of course, is if the game is absolutely terrible, in which case you can probably still sell your copy pretty quickly, assuming you play it quickly and find out. But if it's terrible, then that's a different story as time goes on. But yeah, overall, I would say this is a pretty safe back, just given the amount of stuff they're shoving into the box, combined with Kickstarter exclusive content, combined with it being unlikely to show up in retail. The one thing to be mindful of is shipping is not cheap. I mean, it's going to run you like $25 or $35, whatever it was. It was a lot of money for the 2+ levels. Wherever you're from, it's not cheap for the amount of stuff you're getting over here. And that's Aldarra relaunched. From there, we have Legacy of Thracks: The Awakening. 739 backers, $57,000, 19 days to go. This one is a bit of a Euro Ameritrash hybrid. I don't even know what we're calling it at this point, but a little bit of Euro mechanics, a little bit of Ameritrash mechanics. It is a hybrid game leaning into a whole bunch of options as you wander around the board, as you try to gather the resources needed to break down the barriers, as you try to make your way through. A whole bunch of game modes as well. Anything from just straight up playing the game to a shadow mode with semi-co-op elements, with whole bunch of content for the game, whole bunch of exploration, leveling up your characters, finding their asymmetric paths, a whole bunch of stuff going on. You can check out a bunch of video content as well for more in-depth playthroughs, more in-depth overviews of the gameplay, but that's what's going on at a higher level with a Legacy of Thracks over here. We have two main pledge levels. We have $79 for the base game, and we have $89 for the Kickstarter Deluxe Edition. They show you all of that in this breakdown that I will scroll through as I scroll through a ton of stuff over here. Here we go. Let's show you the base game content first. Base game content is going to be all of this stuff over here. We have the base game, the Kickstarter Deluxe Edition, showing you the map, the miniatures, the characters, all this stuff over here, and then they show you after what's not in the game, which is actually an interesting way of doing it. I kind of like it, how they kind of show you everything, and then they're like, here's the base edition, and here's what's not in the base edition. So as opposed to showing you two full things, we have to like trace what's different. They're just like, hey, base edition does not have these, they're going to be wooden cubes instead. It does not have these, they're going to be wooden cylinders instead, and does not have any Kickstarter exclusive stretch goals. A whole bunch of add-ons as well in case you want any of that, and then an all-in pledge at $170 for everything there. As far as will it, should you back it, should you not, will it show up in retail, all of those questions. Retail plans are kind of on the fence right now. They're planning on Kickstarter. They say retail plans will depend on how well the Kickstarter does, as well as will probably be stripped down. That completely makes sense. That's how it works. In general, when it comes to games like this, it does depend how well they do. If you see 4,000 backers, you're probably getting a retail option, unless, of course, we have that exact caveat with things like Aldarra, where it's just really, really expensive, and even then with something that big, it's a question of how it shows up in retail, if at all. But yeah, 739 backers. This does fall into that middle zone where it may have a retail option, but then that goes to the second caveat, which is how does it show up at retail? What's the price point? What's stripped out? All of that. So if you're on the fence about any of that, Kickstarter is the safer bet. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? A little harder for me to say. The price point versus the content does not make me confident in this one, especially considering as well that the Kickstarter is doing well, but not amazingly well. Something like this, I would guess, is not going to hold its value. I would guess that you're going to lose something in this one. The question is how much, but I think, I'm not saying you'll, completely lose whatever. You might just lose shipping. You might lose a bit more there. It depends on which way you're leaning on the FOMO. This is one where the best option might just be Kickstarter, because it may not be widely available, but if you're looking for something that will hold its value, this is one that I am a little more skeptical will hold its value on. Moving on from there, we have the Quest Kids, Big Bads of Toad Caves, reprint and expansion. 70,000 backers, 984 backers, 18 days to go. This is a reprint of the Quest Kids, as well as the expansion, the Big Bads Toad Cave, which adds some more elements to the gameplay, as well as you can also get the campaign as well in the all-in. Quest Kids is a kids-friendly dungeon crawling experience. You can check out my review on my channel if you want to see that, as well as a bit of a preview for the Big Bads. But this is a family-friendly, kid-friendly dungeon crawling experience, focusing a lot more on basic mechanics as well as cooperation. It's not a cooperative game, but there is a degree of cooperation and helping each other in the gameplay that makes it much more accessible, much more kid-friendly. And the Big Bad of Toad's Cave does escalate some mechanics in a few more ways, giving you some more elements to the game, some quests, some events, some not quests, there's events, there's item cards, there's bosses, some additional elements to the game in terms of being able to elevate the extra degree of mechanics that you're teaching to your kids or introducing them to. That's what's going on over here on this one. As far as price point on this one, we have $25, which is the retail pledge. We can ignore that. We have $34 for just the expansion. We have $78 for the Quest Kids and the Big Bad of Toad's Cave, and $94 for the all-in, which will also give you the Trials of Toad the Wise, which is the campaign element. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? Likely not on this one. This one is not the cheapest in terms of what it's giving you as far as the price points. It's not badly priced, it's not the cheapest, and as far as the secondhand market, this style of game doesn't do as well at holding its value. The flip side as well is that it's not heavily available either. So if your goal is just to get your hands on the game and you don't want to deal with the secondhand market, Kickstarter might be the best option just because it doesn't have a lot of availability outside of the Kickstarter. But as far as holding its value, it's less likely to hold its value on the secondhand market. Moving on to Fujihama with Ajisai, the board game bundling of two different games, 295 backers, $21,000 raised. This is giving you two simple abstract games, basically. You have Fujihama, which is going to be a tile laying game, as you try to gather the various tiles and then place your meeples on the board. And then you have Ajisai, which is going to be in a bit of a Othello adjacent game, as far as giving you some elements of placing different things and flipping down all the peripherals touching it. Different than Othello, very different. You can watch the video over here. It's another good example of a video that will give you a good overview of what's going on there. But that's basically this little bundling of games. We have 295 backers so far. Was that what it was? 295 backers, and the price points for the games aren't cheap considering the types of games they are. They're not expensive, but not cheap either. We have $25 for Ajisai, and we have $33 for Fujihama. That's going to be plus shipping on both of those, which puts us into a weird spot where I have no idea if it'll hold its value. The pure relative price point for amount of content you have for a smaller box game, it does fall a little bit high. Not very high, but once you factor in shipping versus what you can get at retail, again, going back to our Cult of the Now, if you can get something like Luna Capital for $31, and then you have these over here with plus shipping and the smaller box size and what they're giving you, it's always hard to say for sure. The flip side is very often with these imported games, depending on how they do, sometimes they're just they don't hold the value at all, and other times they hold the value tremendously as people try to hunt down the game that is not available and you can't really get your hands on it, so it could go either way. I would just say I'm straight up not confident with these. In general, imports are a little harder to call as far as how well they do on the secondhand market. Moving on from there, we have Maglev, Metro, mechs, monorails, and more. Maglev Metro, 1,400 backers, $125,000 raised. This is bringing you, well, more maps for Maglev Metro. There's going to be 6 maps, all introducing various new mechanics to the game. Maglev Metro, for context, in case you missed it, Maglev Metro is a game that is basically, what's it called? What's the word for it? Pick up and deliver. It's a pick up and deliver game, but it's a pick up and deliver game of engine building, of tableau building at the same time. Because the passengers that you pick up, the way the game is phased out, the base game maps are all going to change it slightly, but the same core concept is there. Every passenger you pick up, the first half of the game starts off with you picking up various passengers that are these robots that you're delivering, and whenever you deliver them, you improve your own player board. So the pick up and deliver is really building your tableau. That's what you're doing as you play. And then as you escalate to the second half of the game, you start focusing more on not the pick up and deliver aspects, but rather still the pick up and deliver, not the tableau engine building, but rather focusing more on the point scoring for the second half of the game. So you're trying to balance both those aspects as you go through the experience. That's the core game. The core game comes with 2 maps, Berlin and Manhattan, New York. I can't remember where. One something in New York as well as Berlin, and then past that there are 6 maps, all introducing new mechanics, new adjustments, new spins to the game, while keeping the same core concept to the game. That's what's going on over here. You can get the maps over here, you can get the maps as well as the base game, as well as some extras at the same time. What you have over here is you have options for $30 each for the mechs and monorails, for the moon bases and Mars, and for the London and Paris. You can see low backer counts for that. We have 6 backers, we have 16 backers. Honestly, I don't know what their plans are, because here's the thing, those map packs that are just individual map packs, they're currently being offered only on Kickstarter, and in retail, apparently they're only going to have the full big box option, which is $80 for all 3. So I'm not sure what they're doing as far as production, as far as shipping and management of the 6 backers who want one of the maps, and also, by the way, they're priced in a way that doesn't make them that appealing. $80 will get you the all-in, all 3 maps. It's a better price point, but additionally, you get 104 screen-printed passengers. So you're also getting this extra that you don't get at the base levels, which means they're specifically trying to push you on that higher pledge level, but then they're not selling these other ones at retail, which means they're kind of dealing with the production and packaging for 6 people. I mean, I guess with that few people, you can just pull it off the assembly line. I don't know what their plans are. I just find this stuff always interesting. But anyways, from there we have $80 for the full all-in, not full all-in, for the 6 maps all bundled together in a singular box, which is the way it will be presented at retail. But unlike retail, you get the 104 screen printed passengers in the Kickstarter bundled in together at that price point, and then $120, $40 extra for the Maglev Metro core game, which sounds like a good deal because that's $40 more for the core game, a core game that is available for like $52 elsewhere, and it's still arguably a good deal, but just barely because of the fact that shipping is going to go up by $10 in between those 2 pledge levels. So it's really $50 for the core game, which at that point basically makes it equitable to retail, although technically you're still saving $2, although if you get it at retail, you can also get it now and then get the expansions later. So really you have to decide what you want to do as far as the core game there, but if you just want the maps are going to be $80 for the 6 maps, which is not necessarily a bad price point, but also not necessarily a good one because they are not telling us the MSRP at least yet. So we don't know the MSRP on this one, which means I can't make an educated judgment call as far as how much will it be. I do know that boards in general, like player boards, like full-on boards, are some of the more expensive things you can produce. I know this like from Command games, they always talk about this, like they're like how they can give you a whole bunch of extra miniatures and it doesn't cost them that much punch past the initial sculpt. But then after that, printing boards is much more expensive. So I do know that boards in general can be a more expensive component. At the same time, I don't know what they're going to price that at. Like, are they going to price the box at $79.95 for the MSRP? I can see that being the case, in which case you're paying $80 plus shipping, which is not the best price point. It's something that will retail for like $62 later. You are getting those 104 screen printed passengers, which is nice, but how much is that worth? It's impossible to say unless they tell us the MSRP, which currently they're not. So we don't really have that information. I can't say whether this is a good back or not with any confidence because of the fact that we don't have any information about the MSRP. It just really depends on that. It really depends on what these will come down to later. The base game, what I can tell you is the base game is being priced appropriately. Not well, not poorly, but appropriately. Once you're paying $40 plus the $10 shipping for the base game, you're basically paying $50 for the base game, which is what you can get at retail. So it's being priced appropriately. That may hold true to the extras or not, to the maps or not. I just don't know. So I would say I don't know on this one, and that's as close as I'm going to come with this. I can only operate so far with limited information. I'm trying to find a picture though of those screen printed meeples because that is likely the main reason or incentive as to why you would get this over here. We have them over here. Here we go. Here's the screen printed meeples, which the main benefit it has is it gives you a little bit more of a distinguishing factor between the various meeples, miniatures, meeples, whatever there are. Not miniatures, the meeples, definitely meeples. And I will say from playing the game that more distinguishing factors on these meeples is a good thing because even with the reprint that they did, they sent out like extra tokens to make it easier to distinguish. They're not always the easiest to tell apart, so having that is definitely helpful. As far as how much do you value that, that is a harder conversation. So Maglev Metro, more maps and a whole bunch of unknown around whether it makes sense to back this one now versus waiting in retail, for retail. Next up, we have Gamestormers, the perfect card game for game designers. $12,000, 217 backers, 25 days to go. Gamestormers is going to be a game for 3 to 6 players of basically crafting your game. You're going to have a whole bunch of mechanics, and you live in a world of where games are everything, and running games is everything, and people create games, and then mechanically speaking, what you're trying to do is you're playing a game in which you're trying to get a whole bunch of cards that will be worth points on their own, but then also give you points for a variety of things based on other stuff. So you're trying to combine cards to give you points based on all the other cards you have. So you're basically building your storyline, your mechanics, your items, you'll have your character with a unique ability, and you're trying to build all that out in the game. But past that, as far as the game itself, you're going to be doing a bunch of things on your turn, but one of the things you're going to be doing is you're going to be having these arenas where you can basically challenge others to design the perfect game, and you're going to be handed a bunch of cards, and you have to convince other players of your game makes more sense, your mechanic, your theme, all the ways it ties together, you have the perfect game pitch. And at that point, it turns into a bit of an apples to apples kind of experience where you have a judge, and this is why you need 3 to 6 players, because you need a judge, and you need at least 2 players there, and then you can play at higher player counts as well. But you're trying to pitch your game to the other players at the table, so that whoever enters the arena gets an opportunity to pitch the game, and then you have a winner, and the player gets to keep one of the cards in order to use for their own private board. That's the main idea of the way to play. There's another mode in the game which you can completely focus on pitching the game. Meaning, if you're someone who the whole judge aspect and pitching a game concept and trying to convince somebody that your game with the ship and the pirates and the this and the that, that's how your game is the best game. If that's the main thing you like, there is a game mode that just focuses on that as well. As far as the pledge levels, we have $35 for a copy of the game, and that's basically it. We just have $35 for a copy of the game. I would say on this is one that's going to be unlikely to hold its value. 217 backers, it did fund, so we're fine there, but at the same time, it's unlikely to hold its value if this is the current demand it has. But if you do want the game, this is likely your best bet. 217 backers also means not a lot of availability on the secondhand market, so this is basically one of those not necessarily now or never kind of conversations, but if you want the game, I would recommend getting on Kickstarter just to lock it in, because the secondhand market in this one is going to be very sparse, just because there's sparse, because there's not a lot of copies out there, and that is Gamestormers. Moving on to Master Dater by Cyanide and Happiness. This is their second crowdfunding campaign, I believe. Their last one was it the third? Because they have 3 games, but I just don't remember if the first one was crowdfunded or not. But either way, the last one that they had was Trial by Trolley. That's from Skybound Entertainment, but that's the Cyanide and Happiness channel. They have a great YouTube channel. I highly recommend it. And Master Dater is their 3rd game, if I have this down as far as numbers. Master Dater is a party game, another judge-based party game, similar to Gamestormers, in which you're trying to convince somebody of something, in this case, who is the perfect date. You see, you're going to have a bunch of cards that illustrate what the target audience is. I'm finding a lifelong mortal enemy. I'm interested in finding a lifelong mortal enemy. Fun fact about me, I only date rich people, and I need someone who will eat me. And so you have a leprechaun snake. That might be, something there. That ends up being the winning factor. Because what you have is you have a bunch of tops and a bunch of bottoms, and you're trying to pair them up in order to create the perfect combination that fits the 3 cards, and then obviously trying to convince the judge accordingly. That's what this is. It's one of those styles of games where you have a reason why you're trying to convince the other players or the judge, and then you just have to try to, convince them with either the cards you played and that on its own, or the further convincing arguments you make once they start drifting towards the other player as you scream and convince them and all of that. that. Yeah, it's one of those styles games. It's a very heavy party-focused game experience. You can check out the video. I highly recommend the video if you want to get a feel for, first of all, their content on YouTube, which is absolutely fantastic, and then secondly is as far as getting a feel for how the game will play, the laughs, the type of game it is, the party game elements, all of that. That's what's going on with Master Data. As far as the pledge levels, we have a few options. We have Why Should I Back Master Data on GameFound. We have Get the Game First, which that may well be relevant. We have Get the Game Cheaper, which is a $5 savings, which is nothing once you factor in MSRPs and once you factor in the fact that they're shipping as well. A $5 savings just doesn't cut it as far as a GameFound, not GameFound either, but Kickstarter, GameFound, crowdfunding in general. A $5 savings doesn't make sense once you factor in shipping and MSRPs in general. So that should not be enough of a factor for you. Supporting the publisher, sure. Getting the game first, sure. Or getting the NSFW work, the Not Safe for Work expansion, then that is also great in case you're interested in that kind of thing. So I'm generally not, which is why I say that a little dismissively. I just don't like NSFW content as much. I just find it's like a, hey, look at our risky, edgy Kickstarter. I'm just probably old and stuffy, and either way. But moving on from there, that's going to be the core idea. That's the core reasons to back the Kickstarter over there. As far as pledge levels, we have the Big Love Edition over here. You can check out the Big Love Edition, which is going to give you the giant box and all the stuff together for $65. We have the Master Data expansion, or the Master Data core game on its own for $25, or the Master Data plus the Uncut expansion for $35 over here. A slightly higher savings, $7 off instead of $5, as well as getting that content there. And then from there we have these as well. That's basically what's going on in terms of Master Data. Will it hold its value? Will it not? I'm skeptical that it will. Using Trial by Trolley as a good reference, if you check out the sales on that one, because Trial by Trolley also had a retail edition, general availability, as well as the Kickstarter exclusive big box, extra content, all of that. Looking on the secondhand market for that one, that does not seem to have done that great a job holding its value, meaning if you're interested in that content and you don't want to hunt it down yourself, then sure, back it on GameFound. But if you're interested in that content and you do want it to hold its value, I would say it seems like it's less likely to do so, and you can probably wait a bit and pick up Master Data eventually on the secondhand market for a cheaper price point for that giant big box edition than what is currently on GameFound if you don't mind used and if you're not in a rush. And that is what's going on with all of these games, which brings us to our pick of the week. The games I'm most interested in, as well as the game that I think will most likely hold its value. You generally have two picks of the week, one for that, the one that will most likely hold its value, and one for the one I'm most interested in. As far as Aldarra, as far as holding its value, the one I'm going to pick is Aldarra. I think Aldarra is the most likely to hold its value from all these games over here. I just think that the combination of the big box, the exclusive content, I think this is the safest bet as far as a game that will hold its value. And as far as my personal interest pick, I did go back and forth, because on the one hand, the maps from Maglev Metro certainly have me interested. On the other hand, I'm probably going to go with Silicon Valley. This is a harder one for me because, like I said already, I'm just not pulled in by the art on this one, which I feel is a shame. But game-wise, I love Project L, and I like Scott Alms, and the combination of those two factors has me very intrigued as to how this one ultimately plays out, how this game ultimately does, how comparable is it? Does it feel like just Project L and I don't really need it because I have Project L, or does it feel like a good innovation and next step from Project L that takes it, the core concept of Project L, and extrapolates it to a larger game system? I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued in Silicon Valley over here. I don't know whether, I still don't know if I'm getting it, because again, it's like, the art, I wish the art were different. And I say this having seen the artist's other work and thinking that it's fantastic. I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. We'll see. Time will tell on this. But that is everything for all of that, which means it's time for what's coming up next week, which is, we have a few things. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up next week. This is just a small selection. We have Last Light from Roy Kennedy over on GameFound. This will be coming next week from Grey Fox Games as well. Yeah, very excited for this one. I've played this one. It's a fantastic game. I should have content, but it'll probably be mid-campaign because my copy has not arrived yet. I have played the game, but it's been a while, so I need to dive back into it. Then we also have The Dark Quarter from Lucky Duck Games. That will be over on Kickstarter. We have 5,000, 6,000 backers already, 6,000 followers already. That's not the same thing. And then lastly, we have Anastasia from Mythic Games, which should be launching sometime soon. They announced the date, I believe, already, so I think it's coming this week. We should see. But Anastasia from Mythic Games, deluxe, over-the-top production values, but will the game hold up or not? And that is everything we have. That's all the stuff. This has been fairly reasonable as far as time frame goes. Probably talking too fast. I need to work on that and slow it down in some way, shape, or form at some point. But in any case, until next time, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks for being here, and as always, have a good one. So for those of you for those of you who have gotten used to sticking around till the end for that inevitable, terrible, horrible joke, well, first of all, I'm going to have a good one for you at some point, but not today. Today we're going to go with a short one, okay? Have you heard of Murphy's Law? Like, you know, let's try this again. Have you heard of Murphy's Law? You know, the whatever could go wrong will go wrong. Well, have you heard of coleslaw? It's thinly sliced cabbage.